My name is Neil Walker. I'm the program's lead for Challenges Rwanda, based in Kigali. And I will be hopefully chairing you today if our internet holds. And joining me today is Stephen Hunt, who you've heard already. He's the research manager at the Challenges Group based in Edinburgh. We have Fidel Gasore. He's the associate and lead on this project for Challenges. We're very pleased to have a fantastic panel with us who will be speaking at the second half of the webinar. So that is Liam Brady, who is the president of Sustainable Harvest, Valerie Indigajimana, who is the senior associate in the Great Lakes region for Rainforest Alliance, and Alexis Nkurunziza, who's the agricultural traditional commodities division manager at the National Agricultural Export Board in Rwanda. So really great breadth and variety of experience there. I'm looking forward to hearing them speak later. The structure of the webinar will be an introduction to the webinar and panelists. Then I will just give a brief introduction to who we are and some of the work that we've done in energy. Stephen Fidel will be giving an introduction to the climate justice program and the key findings and takeaways from the project. And then hopefully we'll get a good period of time, good chunk of time to really get into it with the panel, where we'll be discussing micro and macro issues and opportunities in coffee and climate going forward into the future. So without much further ado, the Challenges Group, for those of you who do not know, is a family of enterprise consultancies which have a focus on developing and emerging economies. Since 1999, we've provided over 100,000 on-site consulting days, delivered £30 million in equity and debt financing, and supported over 3,000 growth businesses in over 60 countries. In the past 4 years alone, we have partnered with more than 1,000 companies in sub-Saharan Africa. We've established offices and full-time teams in Ghana, Malawi, Rwanda, Uganda, and Zambia, and offer a range of program and advisory work. In addition, we have supported the piloting and prototyping, market entry of innovative renewable or green technology through deep dive research and business modeling. And this path has led us to many interesting areas, attempting to understand the burgeoning clean tech sector and ask questions about the viability, feasibility, and reliability of innovations in solar, water, and other clean technologies. Alongside this, Rwanda itself has been a lightning rod for innovation in recent years, with policy and regulations firmly establishing the country as welcoming the future with open arms, perhaps best signified by the Green City Initiative, although my personal favorites are the slightly dangerous but increasing numbers of electric motorbikes that hum very quietly along the roads of Kigali. For Challenges Rwanda, we're proud to be part of this story, and we've tried to do so in many ways. We've worked with enterprises in the UK and Rwanda and around the world to bring technology and business models to market, whether it's hyper-efficient water filtration devices, capturing surplus solar, or thermal water collectors. Some of these are successful, others not. But innovation is never a linear path to success. History is littered with great inventors who wanted to change the world and were frustrated. Sometimes the world isn't ready, and other times the invention isn't. When I joined Challenges in Rwanda a few years ago now, the climate justice program that funded the work that we'll be talking about today was focused primarily on the exciting opportunity of mini-grids. Working with a local implementer, Mesh Power, light and power was provided to the cooperative of Bahanga in the southern province. Benefits included increased productivity due to longer working hours and improved security for the office and washing station. But it is also our task and our burden to understand financial feasibility of technology, not just its benefits. And in this case, the cost benefit of the mini grid was actually unfavorable. We returned to our chalkboards. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best. In 2018, we installed the first wastewater site in Kopakachi, a cooperative in the project based in the Karongi area of the country, close to Lake Kivu. Immediately, it was obvious that this would be a highly beneficial implementation. It would support certification, it would improve quality, and it would improve social relations too. When Scottish Government agents visited the site, the simplicity and effectiveness was so much so that they generously provided further capital for additional implementation. And we're very proud to say that every cooperative that is part of the project, which did not have a wastewater treatment site, now does. In an effort to understand more about the sites, we wound up to where we are today, with a deeper understanding of the benefits, opportunities, and challenges of these sites within the context of individual cooperatives. I'll leave my colleagues to speak to you about this now. And again, I'm excited to have the panel with us today to discuss clean tech, to discuss climate, and to discuss coffee more generally. First, I'll pass over to my colleague Stephen to walk us through some of the finer points of the climate justice programme, and then to Fidel and Stephen will discuss the findings of the report. I pass it over to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you very much for that introduction and that rich kind of overview of Challenge's work. I'm going to be spending a little bit of time just providing a little bit of context to the background of the feasibility study that we've delivered, who our funders are, what we set out to achieve, and where the journey has taken us over the last 3 years. Just before that, just after that, Fidel, my colleague, will provide a bit more in-depth information on the findings that we've come across. So the Challenge Rwanda program, as Neil alluded to, was funded by the Climate Justice Programme, which was a Scottish government funded initiative looking at climate solutions to solutions to climate change across the Scottish government's country interest areas. The Scottish government have been incredibly passionate about funding and finding supporting solutions to the resolution of climate change agendas across countries such as Zambia, Rwanda, Malawi, and in other areas as well. As part of that initiative, we at the Challenges Group were granted a innovation pot to look at the feasibility of how clean and green technologies could support Rwandan coffee cooperatives in their agenda towards climate resilience, and also the ways in which green and clean technologies can support better market access and sustainability. This initiative was called the Cool Coffee Programme. The programme started 3 years ago with the objective to identify the feasibility of 2 technologies. The first was looking at solar PV technologies within the cooperatives, and the second was looking at treating wastewater in the coffee washing stations. That led to the installation of wastewater treatment facilities. The initiative under the solar PV included supporting Bahanga cooperative with the installation of a solar PV unit and looking at the electricity usage, production, and ancillary benefits that could be accrued from installing such technologies. As part of that initiative, we undertook a detailed financial model of the revenue model of the business, looking at the cost points and the different relationships that this technology would bring back into the cooperative through revenue or through ancillary benefits. As part of that initiative, we identified a number of challenging areas in the feasibility of delivering solar PV units within these cooperatives. Some of these challenges included maintenance issues of ongoing support, funding long-term maintenance and the facilities that were involved, tapping into the ancillary benefits that are accrued by solar PV, but also the big challenge, which was finding a financially sustainable way in which cooperatives like Bahanga can support this. We concluded that there are a number of challenges that we still need to work out and to make solar PV sustainable for a lot of these cooperatives, and therefore we worked with the Scottish Government to look at alternative ways in which we can support the cooperatives. One of these solutions was identified in supporting the wastewater treatment facilities in 2 cooperatives. One was Kopakachi and the other was Bahanga. The Rwandan coffee cooperative context varies wildly in terms of geography, location, soil type, revenue, size, and a lot of these different factors are not taken into consideration when investing in green and clean technologies. Therefore, we set out with the initiative under this project to look at the different benefits and costs and trade-off points that might be incurred through the investment of wastewater treatment facilities. Through this agenda, we installed 2 wastewater treatment facilities at 2 very different coffee cooperatives, Bahanga and Kopakachi. We then worked with the cooperatives and their surrounding communities to identify what the costs and benefits are for the installing such wastewater treatment facilities, and what could we learn, and what could we engage, and what could we identify as routes to supporting cooperatives in the longer term across Rwanda and wider with the lessons that we learned from this innovation. The way in which we did that was we undertook a comparative assessment between the 2 cooperatives, looking at the environmental, the economic, and the community factors that are at play, considering the financial implications as well as the sustainability points. And this is where our colleague Fidel, who played a key role in delivering this initiative, will present some of these findings. I believe if Fidel comes off mute, I can then follow through with these slides.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you everyone for coming to this presentation. I'm going through to the findings and explain a little bit about the differences between these two COPs where we installed this wastewater treatment system. And also we'll be going through to see some of the main impacts that we saw about, from the construction of this wastewater treatment system. Next, please. Starting from the background of this construction, we wanted to go through to why we constructed the wastewater treatment system for both Buhanga and Kopakachi. The main reason why is that both COPs uses wet processing for coffee processing at the coffee washing station. And then because we know that using wet processing for this coffee processing produce a lot of, generate a lot of waste into the nearby environment. That's why we said, let's construct this wastewater treatment system to tackle this environmental problem and also some of the economic problem caused by the waste that was generated by the solar, the coffee washing station. So we constructed two wastewater treatment system in Kopakachi and in Buhanga, and we'll be going through them in this presentation. Next, please. Starting from a little bit about the profiles of these two COPs, for those who don't know, who are on the calls. One in Kopakachi is located in Western Province, and Buhanga is located in Southern Province. So it's the differences are in climate and also in the location where they're located. Kopakachi was founded in 2007, and now the COP have 11,184 members, of which 437 are women, and the main variety is bourbon coffee, and the certification they have now is Fairtrade and Rainforest Alliance. Going to Buhanga Coffee Cooperative, it was founded in 2009, and also now they have the 387 members, of which 127 are women, and their main coffee variety is bourbon, and also the certification they have now is Fairtrade. Next, please. The main wastewater treatment system we constructed. These are the pictures of the wastewater treatment we constructed, starting from Kopakachi. I'm gonna go through some of the differences they had when we started the construction. One is that for Kopakachi, it had some existing infrastructures, which was easy to construct only the wastewater treatment system. But for Buhanga, we had to redesign the whole coffee washing station, including where the machines are, and also constructing the new wastewater treatment system. So the treatment system we constructed for both is aerobic one, where we have chambers where the wastewater that goes through coming from the wastewater, from the coffee washing station, it goes directly to the wastewater treatment system, and then water is treated before it is discharged to the environment. So from the right, this is the Buhanga Coffee Corps, the new building they have, and also the wastewater treatment system that we constructed for this COP. And then on the left, we have Kopakachi, where we can see the wastewater we constructed in 2018, and also Buhanga was completed in 2020. Next, please. So we're going to go through some of the socio-economic impacts for the wastewater treatment we found while constructing this wastewater treatment system into these two COPs. So for this research, we had made different stakeholders, including conducting interviews with the coffee managers, with the people around the coffee cooperative, to see what's the new development that this wastewater treatment system has brought to these communities. Starting from Kopakachi, the construction of this wastewater treatment system has helped the cooperative to reduce the internal cooperative cost, because we found out sometimes there were some fines that were charged because the wastewater that was going to the farms nearby the farms nearby the cooperative, and they were claiming, so there were some of the fines. So when the wastewater treatment system was constructed, so it has reduced dramatically this cost that was paid before having this wastewater treatment system. Secondly, the installation of wastewater treatment system in Kopakachi has helped the cooperative to secure some certification, including Rainforest Alliance and UTZ as same. So because some of the requirement to acquire this certification is also having a clear way of treating this wastewater from the coffee washing station. So by having the wastewater treatment system, they were able to secure this certification. Another impact that we saw is the increase in the income, because before having this certification, they were selling the coffee between $3.9 to $4.5 per kilo, but now they're selling at $4.7 to $6, depending on the client where they're located. And also they've been able to secure some new buyers, including the buyers from the US and Germany, as it is mentioned here. Next, please. Also, here are some of the environmental impacts of the wastewater treatment facilities that we constructed. Before having as I mentioned before having the wastewater treatment system, the water was discharged directly to the environment before treatment. But after the construction, we have seen there is a reduced pollution from wastewater and decline in conflict with people living around the cooperative. So before having the wastewater construction, there was this conflict, as I mentioned before, where people around were claiming that the water that is coming from the coffee washing station are polluting, are going to their farms, and then it brings in some conflict. So that is one impact we've seen that has been solved by having a wastewater treatment system. There's also reduced pollution in water costs. Before the construction of a wastewater treatment system, as I also mentioned, the wastewater used to be discharged directly to the environment, but now this problem has been solved. Also, air pollution is declined. So this wastewater from the coffee washing station produce the bad smell in the environment. So because it is not treated, but having this wastewater treatment system, it helped reduce this air pollution, where people can have good air while they are working at the coffee washing station, and also the people around the cooperative. Next, please. Coming to Buhanga, the social economic impact we've seen is that this wastewater, because as I mentioned before, Buhanga is one of the less developed cooperative we had. Now that they have the wastewater treatment system, they are in a good path to have some of the certification that we help them to export to gain more other clients outside, adding to the clients they had before, because the wastewater treatment system will help them to acquire new certification, Rainforest Alliance and UTZ, as I mentioned. Also, because the Buhanga cooperative had a poor infrastructure, this wastewater treatment will help the cooperative to develop, as I mentioned before. Next, please. Also coming to I've gone through some of the environmental impact for wastewater treatment system for Kopakachi. So we have reduced wastewater pollution, we benefit farmers and reduce local conflict, and also it will help to reduce air pollution, as I mentioned in the previous slide. Next, please. Some key practices for wastewater treatment system, and also some of the recommendation we had come up with is because the two main recommendation is the sensitization campaign to teach people, the education and awareness campaign around the wastewater treatment system, that to help people in the cooperative about the clean water use practice in the cooperative, and also the longer term environmental benefits that we have seen. These are some of the key recommendations we provide. Next, please. So summing up some of the economic impact we've seen, we have a clear environmental benefit. We have the certification that the cooperative have been able to acquire, and also Buhanga is in the way of acquiring this certification. Also, compliances and the regulation that of the wastewater, the coffee processing, as you know, and also the longer term viability, like maintenance and upkeep. The implication for cost and investment, the price points for borrowing limits, revenue and business model, lengthy break-even point role, and for cooperative and farmers, access to international markets and business management capabilities. So these are some of the economic benefits we've seen. Next, please.
Thank you so much, Fidel. Just to wrap this up, Fidel, thank you so much for your overview of the environmental and socioeconomic impacts that we identified within the wastewater treatment sites, the washing stations. These long-term impacts and the lessons that we've learned from these initiatives have a number of key takeaways that we want to raise with our audience, and as we call on partners to work together to improve some of these key challenges. There are a number of bottlenecks that we've identified throughout our research, which we would like to just spend a bit of time reflecting on. There are clear environmental benefits across installing a wastewater treatment site at both facilities, both in the short term and expectedly over the long term. Certification plays an immediate and long-term role in supporting the cooperatives to gain access to higher premiums from international markets. And having access to certification also boosts the profiles of the cooperatives as well as their incomes. However, the ancillary costs and benefits of wastewater treatment need to be properly understood and balanced in regards to what are the factors that make these initiatives most sustainable for the cooperatives. We know that the compliance and regulation, wastewater treatment facilities support the compliance and regulation of the cooperatives to meet local environmental standards and avoid additional OPEX costs in the form of fines or penalties. But the longer term viability for these cooperatives needs to account. It's not simply enough to just install a wastewater treatment facility, but it needs to, the costs and the ongoing long-term costs need to be factored into the long-term revenue models of these cooperatives. For example, the differences in Buhanga to Kopakachi. Kopakachi is significantly larger and already has access to international markets, and therefore can take home some of the premiums to afford these longer term costs. But Buhanga, where Buhanga struggles sometimes to export, they're cornered into local markets and lower prices. And so when we think about the price points and the borrowing limits of cooperatives, we have to understand that whilst Kopakachi was relatively cheap to install the wastewater treatment facilities, Bahanga was about 3 times more expensive. And that 3 times more expensive cost is on the backdrop of a revenue model which Bahanga perhaps could not afford to take out in kind of ethical financing. And so there needs to be a call of action to kind of look at alternative ways to finance and provide technical support to Bahanga or cooperatives who are just starting to enter the international market. Any revenue models and business models must account for the return on investment that these sorts of interventions can account for. For example, we identified that there are exceedingly lengthy borrowing times for wastewater treatment facility loans, as well as there are for solar PV. In our solar PV findings, we saw that the cost to borrowing for solar PV installations had anywhere between a 7 to 20 year break-even point for some of these cooperatives, which just is not sustainable. In some of the research that we did with some of the associates at Rainforest Alliance, we found that some of the cooperatives need to find a return on investment between 2 to 3 years after they have invested in building these initiatives. So there's a big disparity in inequity within how we identify and fund these initiatives. Better marketing, better business management, and better technical support to these cooperatives can help achieve this, as well as a call for innovation for blended finance structures over the longer term can help address these inequities and these barriers for the smaller cooperatives. And some of the key findings that we just want to call to action as well as involves the appetite for these cooperatives to adopt green transformation agendas. The political economy of the green transformation space in Rwanda is still in its infancy, and so there is still regulatory issues as well as the political structures in place to support the implementation of these technologies, and there is a need to identify better coordination and identify better strategies that are coming through with the green transformation agenda in Rwanda to ensure that everyone within the cooperative communities can benefit from these technologies. Thank you very much, everyone. That is the end of our presentation, and I'm just going to hand back over now to Neil for our panel discussion. In the meantime, if you do have any questions, please do go onto Slido and enter the code that we had at the beginning.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephen and Fidel, for that. Can I just say also in being on the ground here and watching this kind of take off, it's been a really great experience and wouldn't have been possible without Fidel. So I'd like to take this opportunity to extend a special thanks to him for leading on the project, leading on the data gathering and working closely with all of the stakeholders and partners in doing so. Just a kind of housekeeping note, because of the late start, I'm not entirely sure we'll have time to get to questions. So if you would like to write them in the Slido, as Stephen said, we will be actually writing about this and publishing it, and hopefully we can answer your questions there. Otherwise, we can share emails, and we're absolutely welcome any discussion people might have. So now to get to our panel, which I'm again really excited about. I'm going to start off by asking the panelists to introduce themselves. Alex, as a representative in Rwanda, would you like to start just a kind of a minute or 2 minutes introduction to yourself and what you do and the work NIAB does in this area? I pass it over to you, Alex. Alex, are you able to hear me? Okay, we'll go to Alex in a moment. Liam, perhaps you can kick us off.
Yes, I'm there.
Hi, Alex, please go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you could just give us a short introduction. Yeah, we can hear you, Alex. If you can just give a short introduction to yourself and the work that you do in NIAB, that would be great. Minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Alex Nkurunziza. I work for NIAB as a traditional commodity division manager. It is the division which oversees coffee, tea, bilateral, and essential oil. I'm there for 6 years. Started in December 2014 up to now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Liam, would you like to go next?
You bet. Thanks, Neil. Hello, everybody. My name is Liam Brody. I'm the president of Sustainable Harvest. We're a specialty coffee importer with operations around the world. We work with about 62,000 farm families in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And we've been at this for about 25 years, really trying to push the frontier from 25 years ago when coffee was a very opaque commodity, where consumers and even buyers didn't know the farmers, and most farmers had never tasted their coffee or truly understood the value. And Sustainable Harvest has been working directly with farmers for 25 years to really turn that equation on its head and to disrupt the coffee market. So smallholders at the margins are brought to the center, both in their ability to understand the product, its value, and to negotiate, for themselves in the market. And after 25 years, we've developed incredible long-term relationships with growers and farm families and cooperatives around the world, including right here in Rwanda, where we have our greatest portfolio in East Africa.
Thanks very much, guys. Valerie, I don't think is here. He must have dropped off from internet issues. Valerie, please do pipe up if you are, but I don't think so. So I will just start off with a question to you, Liam. Sustainable Harvest, as you've just mentioned, have been building the relationship coffee brand for over 2 decades, and you've recently taken this approach from the Americas and started building greater focus on East Africa. With that perspective, that of a ethical and supportive commercial partner, how do you see the challenge of climate change and coffee generally, and in terms of the market?
Thanks, Neil. It's a great question. First, just thanks for having me. I'm really thankful for you and for Stephen and Challenges Worldwide for the incredible work you do. It's a real inspiration. I feel like as a partner, we're able to truly learn from you, and it's a powerful collaboration. We're also thankful for the Scottish government and their really deep vision to support this work. It's not just valuable in Rwanda, but it has our ability to leverage that around the world with smallholders. So deeply thankful. And so thankful for the inspirational and visionary work that the Rwandan government does, and particularly the team at NIAB around coffee. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's not easy to be in coffee these days. It is not easy probably to be a human on planet Earth these days. This has not been the easiest time for humanity, and so I think about coffee as a subset, and think in many ways coffee has weathered the COVID pandemic better than many commodities and better than many industries. But we're coming off of years and years of challenging times for farmers. I think the history of coffee for most smallholders has been quite challenging. The industry was never focused on smallholders at its core and how to do right by them. The industry was built on the idea of extraction of value. And so, I think if you look specifically back at the climate crisis and where did that come into play, I like to point to somewhere around the last 10 years as a really great example of what many people have called coffee being the canary in the coal mine for the climate crisis. And we saw that in Latin America, most presently in the form of coffee leaf rust, or in Spanish, what's called la roya. Coffee leaf rust is a fungus that eats away at the plant leaves. They drop off and then kill the plant. Temperatures, humidity, wind all play a role in exacerbating the conditions under which coffee leaf rust thrives. We saw coffee leaf rust really play a dramatic role in Latin America, particularly in Mesoamerica. We saw coffee leaf rust have dire consequences in Mesoamerica. In about 2013, when coffee leaf rust hit at its worst, it wiped out about 16% of coffee. That was coffee that had to be replaced and replanted. That was production that was gone forever. In Colombia, it was even more dramatic years before, in 2008, when their coffee leaf rust epidemic started. Their production was down 31%. So that was pretty dramatic. During that time, the numbers are sketchy, but folks point to well over $1 billion in loss at the farm level from coffee leaf rust, from Leroy. And so it's easy to see why that was a massive disruption for the industry. You start to see a lot of shifting away from certain origins, certain countries in Central America, particularly, to other countries. You saw some benefit to that in East Africa and other nations for sure. But we saw tremendous humanitarian catastrophe come from that. You saw massive migration. I think if you look at some of the migration that came out of the coffee lands in countries like Honduras and Guatemala and southern Mexico, migration to cities, migrations to the United States, certainly linked to Roya. You look at massive hunger in the coffee lands, you look at the increase in narco trafficking and the destabilization of governance. That's just one example. That was one epidemic, one minor epidemic that was the beginning, the opening salvo, if you will, of the coffee crisis. You shift to that and you look at what experts like the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, they go by their acronym in Spanish, CIAT. They've done lots of really incredible mapping of the potential impact of climate, especially on Latin America. And I share this because I think a lot of the research is easily transferable, given that climatic conditions are so similar. But important not to draw perfect conclusions to Rwanda. CIAT did mapping about what coffee would look like in the future, and they used very extensive machine learning so they could map all types of different data. And they looked at where coffee was on a baseline between 1970 and the year 2000, and then they predicted where it could be in 2040 to 2070. And in Latin America, particularly in Central America and Mexico, the picture is grim. The picture looks perhaps like upwards of 70% change in coffee in some locations. They broke down what's needed for coffee farmers to survive, or farmers or humans to survive in those locations, into three buckets. They talk about incremental adaptation. That's sort of the minor things you need to do. Basically, things will still thrive, but there are some minor shifts. They talked about systemic adaptation. That's sort of some massive changes that need to be in place in order for coffee to still thrive. And then they talk about transformation. That basically says coffee can no longer be grown in this area. And if you look across Mesoamerica, there are huge chunks, the majority of Central America and Mexico, where systemic adaptation is required or full transformation. And so that means in the coming 10 to 20 years, we're going to see another massive shift in coffee. I say this not to be gloom and doom, but again, not to sugarcoat it, because we need to have our eyes wide open. And in coffee, we certainly do, because this is corresponded with another cycle of low and stagnant prices. And so if farmers haven't been hit by enough, starting to face the beginning of climatic shift, they're now also trying to contend with that with direly low coffee prices that have been stagnant, often below the cost of production, for years and years now. And so that's the important backdrop that I think we come into the pandemic with, and we come into this battle against the climate crisis with. That said, I am not full of gloom and doom. That might surprise folks, but despite all of this, I'm incredibly optimistic about the future for coffee and the role coffee can play in our world from a development and climatic perspective. For me, I'm enthusiastic for three reasons. One, consumers. Two, government policy. Just look at my country, the United States, in the last week and a half has rejoined the global community and rejoined the Paris Accord. And then finally, I'm enthusiastic and hopeful because of changing corporate commitments. This last year alone, you saw massive commitments in the coffee industry from importers like Sustainable Harvest and our competitors like Olam and Ecom to industry bodies like the Sustainable Coffee Challenge, setting global industry goals for 2050 and targets for 2025 that look specifically at emissions in carbon and look specifically at prices paid to farmers, to consumer brands like Nestle that 25 years ago when I started my work in this industry working for Oxfam, I campaigned against the company. 25 years later, they are not perfect, but they're leading the way in many places. I'm gonna pause there and come back to telling you a little bit more why I'm enthusiastic and why I think there are huge opportunities for the entire community moving forward if we make the right decisions now. But I'll wait on that for a few moments. Neil?
Thank you very much, Liam. Yeah, it's a great overview that you just gave us, and there's certainly challenges, but there certainly seems to be some rising to those challenges too. I look forward to hearing more about the work that Sustainable Harvest and others are doing to combat that. Coming to you, Alex, of Rwanda, the country has a target of 1 billion exports, I think, by 2022. And coffee is a big part and has always been a big part of that ambition. But Rwanda also faces particular challenges from climate change. So in view of what Liam just said and what we know, how do you see the interplay of climate and coffee in terms of Rwanda and the country's objectives and ambitions with coffee?
Thank you, Neil. I'm greeting all the participants in this platform. I can give a brief background of Rwandan coffee. So the Rwandan coffee is being produced among all the districts, about 27 out of the 30 districts of Rwanda. So it's being grown by smallholder farmers. Yeah, along the value chain, we have the processors, the exporters, as well as the buyers who are outside of Rwanda, like Sustainable Harvest. As you said, we are having a target of giving a revenue of about 1 billion in all commodities. Among the revenue we are expecting, the coffee will play a major role in giving the revenue from exports. So as you said, we are facing the challenges caused by climate change. Mainly, we are experiencing the prolonged droughts. We are having prolonged rain. Those two are causing the impact of the production of Rwandan coffee. So the main issue we are handling now is the issue of pest and disease. So the main disease we are facing is coffee leaf rust, as my counterpart said before. So we are experiencing the coffee leaf rust, coffee berry disease, and we have a small part of coffee berry borer. Those are main diseases we are facing in our country. So as a Rwanda, we are setting mitigation measures so that we can achieve the target of 1 billion. One of the measures we are trying to do with our farmers, cooperative, and the major actors of the value chain is try to mix coffee with shade trees so that we can limit the pest and disease. Another mitigating measure we are implementing in our country is we are trying to cultivate coffee in small. we are undertaking research on crosser planting. In Colombia, they are planting coffee around 8,000 trees in 1 hectare. So here in Rwanda, we are still at 2,500 trees per 1 hectare. We are trying to undertake research and how we can maximize the land we are having, and we produce more coffee. So we are having so many measures we are implementing so that we can achieve this target of getting 1 billion in 2024. But it will be done not only NAEB as a regulator, will be done in collaboration with stakeholders. As Ian mentioned, we are having researchers, we are having farmers, we are having processors, we are having exporters. All those actors along the coffee value chain, we have its role in implementing this so that we can achieve a target we are envisaging. So in brief, without taking long, is what in Rwanda we are trying to do so that we can achieve our target. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. And yeah, absolutely. Working with NAEB, really can see all the work that you guys do on the ground. And I think the government of Rwanda is one of the a real flag bearer in terms of listening and responding to the challenges faced by smallholder farmers across every commodity. I think Valerie is with us now, so welcome, Valerie. If you'd like to give an introduction, and then also I just wanted to ask that the Rainforest Alliance has been at the forefront of the greening commodities agenda for years, and the certification is held up as the standard for climate responsible action in many ways in commodities. In your view, what does the big picture look like in terms of encouraging consumers and producers to engage in climate responsible action, consumerism, and so on? But yeah, please, by all means, introduce yourself first, and then I look forward to hearing your answer.
Thanks a lot, Neil, and my apologies for not being recognized. Of course, I don't know what was appearing on the screen. My name was not appearing correctly. So yeah, my name is Valerie Ndagijimana. I have 9 years experience in sustainability, including 3 years of that time at Rainforest Alliance as senior associate in Great Lakes, including Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, and Uganda. So back to your question, certification has been playing an important role for coffee farmers, not only coffee farmers, supply chain actors, and as well as including consumers, because everyone needs to consume something which is of good quality and which has been produced sustainably. So for now, the picture of Rwanda compared to the other countries, nearby countries like Rwanda, is also growing very in terms of having a good number of certified farmers. Of course, Uganda has been in advance, and Kenya, but Rwanda is also doing well now. So we now have around 17 organizations currently certified the Rainforest Alliance with active license. With expired license, that means they have dropped. I need also to mention this as part of, and I will be explaining why. We have also 50 prospects. I can call them prospects because they have registered and their license have the status of in preparation. They have demonstrated they're willing to go for certification. So starting from, let's say, the challenge, I have been remarking in this. I have to say 2 main because of the time. There's a cost of running a certification. This has been a big challenge from the side of the farmers. The cost of implementation, that's one side, but also the cost of external audit, because the farmers need to get prepared and then they call for an external audit. For instance, as I can refer to the presentation you have made, the cost of infrastructure, for instance, wastewater management. I can give an example of Kopakama, which got a funding from Tylers of Harrogate of 20,000 USD for running a digester for treating and recycling wastewater. You mentioned Buhanga, Kopakachi, and many more. So it's not really easy to get an organization which is able to put up a system of implementing the standard without leaning on external funding. So this is a challenge and is leading to different consequences like dropping from certification or for instance, demonstrating a commitment but not going forward because of not having financial means to run that certification. Another challenge has been market access and uptake. For instance, if you look at the figures I have presented, I have told you 19 organizations certified with 29 expired licenses. With the 29 expired licenses, this means they didn't get any buyer at all, and they were not able to renew their certification. They have dropped. And then some of these organizations with active license, they might have sold their coffee as a whole, but the others are still struggling, or they have sold the part of it. So this is another challenge from our producer organizations certified. So I'm calling all buyers to look at Rwandese Coffee Certified Rainforest Alliance, because we have good coffee. So if you are just in Europe, in USA, and you want to consume coffee, you need to think how tomorrow that coffee will be produced. Our farmers are producing sustainable coffee. They are investing, they have willingness, but they still have issues regarding financial investment so that they can produce sustainably. I'm also calling NAIB to keep on supporting these farmers. We have been working closely hand in hand to support some farmers, but their support is still needed so that we can keep moving forward with enough figures, enough numbers of certified farmers, which will give guarantee of those activities which are climate responsible being implemented at the coffee farmers level. So thank you very much. That's from my side. Yeah, unless you have questions.
Thank you very much, Valerie. We'll come back into a moment to you. So Alex, actually just touching on what Valerie's just said, in terms of NAIB's role in supporting cooperatives, in supporting them get this kind of certification and supporting market access, what role does getting the necessary finance play in developing and advancing this agenda of pushing the quality and pushing the market access of Rwandan coffee? I hope you get the question.
Neil, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no problem. I was asking, in light of what Valerie has just been saying, and in terms of NAIB's role in supporting cooperatives and going on from what we've talked about already, what role does supporting the cooperatives in terms of getting the necessary finance play in advancing this agenda of Rwandan coffee, of climate friendly coffee, and improving market access? So around the aspects of finance, of connecting with finance, one of the things Valerie talked about was the cost of implementation and for final audits. How do we connect cooperatives with finance better and improve their capacity to access this kind of certification in markets?
Yeah, thank you, Neil. NAIB, we are the regulator of Rwandan coffee. It is understandable we provide some support to our cooperative, mainly on certification, on providing finance mainly to the certification audit. But we have other support in this framework of improving the climate change. So mainly we are supporting cooperative with shade trees to mix with their coffee farms. So we mainly support the farmers and cooperative in providing the pesticide to fight against the pest and disease in their plantations. But we had a project under IFAT called the Price. We have been supporting cooperatives in certification. If I recall very well, we supported around 20 cooperatives in the coffee sector with certification. Among them, some of them have been certified with organic certificate. They are now accessing the international market. The other support we are providing, you know, there are some banks who provide credit on low interest rate, like Robobank. We are having Root Capital. So other companies, we are still helping cooperative. Like we are having here in Rwanda, BRD, which provides a loan at low interest rate. So we are trying to connect those cooperatives with those banks so that they can be accessed to the loan with low interest rates. So there is a export guarantee in BRD, Banque Rwandaise de Développement. They are supporting cooperatives in certifying them with a grant of 50%. So we are trying to collaborate with the BRD so that our cooperatives, even small private farmers, we have been supporting. We are not focusing on not only on cooperatives, but all the coffee farmers. Even the big private are benefiting from this grant from BRD. So there are so many initiatives as government of Rwanda we are offering so that we can help on this agenda of climate change and we achieve our target as a nation, as a continent, as well as our planet. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much for that as well. Valerie, if I can just come back to you. So, you know, we've just heard about some of the initiatives and you yourself spoke about the need of stakeholders to engage from all over the place. Can you just build on it a little bit and just tell us some more in terms of key bottlenecks in the advancements of greening producers in Rwanda and East Africa generally, and maybe some of the kind of characteristics of successful initiatives in supporting cooperatives receive their certification and gain access to the markets internationally and regionally. Yeah, if you can just kind of speak almost to your own experiences in this manner and what works and what doesn't.
Thanks a lot, Neil. Thanks a lot. I was checking if I'm not muted. Of course, from my previous experience, some of the bottlenecks is also the lack of personnel from producer organizations. So one of the benefits of rainforest land certification is to have strong organizations which can cope with climate change. So if the organizations don't have enough personnel, trained personnel, this means they can't be certified and therefore they can't cope with this climate change. So this is another challenge, and just building on what Alex was saying, I think it's good also from NAIB with the available resources from different organizations have been mentioning to have farmers trained, like personnel from different cooperatives trained, as this is being done different in nearby countries. And so with these people, at least they can go back and teach the farmers, which is a sustainable way of doing it, instead of waiting from someone from outside and coming down to Rwanda for training and go back. Another way is also to have local auditors. Currently, you have one certification body locally established, And yeah, I really encourage, or I'm calling upon NAEB to also engage in many more certification bodies, because these also playing an important role in the cost of certification. I can't forget, or I can't drop this, I have mentioned this challenge of market. So I've been in different countries of East Africa. They organize coffee shows. So, and they have this coffee website and annual coffee roadmap. They produce the annual coffee report and they share with partners. I really like this, and this can be like learning from also other countries, and yeah, of course, as well as they also have something to learn from us. We have, just to conclude, we have also opportunities. Our farmers are really committed. They are committed. They want to go for certification. They want to go for green technology. And yeah, together, I'm sure we can do it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. That's a really positive note to end on, and to kind of maybe, yeah, to finish on another positive note. Liam, really excited to hear more about the initiative that you're launching and the people in the market. You know, other people, other actors such as Sustainable Harvest, what they can do and how they can kind of give us some optimism for the future of green, clean coffee production and the future of coffee generally.
Absolutely, Neil. I'm happy to. There's a lot to be enthusiastic about right now, and from my perspective, it's because, you know, if designed properly with the right partners at the table, the work ahead can really be designed to increase farmer profitability. I think it can be designed to combat the multitude of climate change, you know, problems coming at us. It can be designed in the same way to, you know, develop new employment opportunities, new industries, and, you know, from a farmer perspective, it can truly, you know, improve food security, nutrition, and health. And so, you know, in my mind, the question is, wow, what is it? And so I think about a company like Nestle that came out this year, or in last year, very publicly to make commitments to say that all of the coffee they buy by 2022, so we're talking, you know, less than 2 years, will be carbon neutral. And so what does that mean for a smallholder in Rwanda? That means if you grow carbon neutral coffee, you have a huge market, and perhaps a market with a premium. And perhaps that premium is even in addition to a certification. Hard to tell right now because we're at the early days. Maybe you're able to benefit from creating, you know, carbon-free coffee or emissions-free coffee, net zero coffee, or you know, deforestation-free coffee. Lots of ways to look at this. Some people are calling it things like climate positive coffee. All of these mean something a little different, which is work to be done in the sector. But that said, there are ways that if farmers are making the right investments on their farm, if they're investing in regenerative agriculture, if they're investing in tools and practices that create climate positivity, that create an atmosphere where there's no deforestation, I believe that you have a huge income potential there. There are opportunities to create carbon credits and to sell to the voluntary markets. There are opportunities to get incentives from national governmental bodies, and there are opportunities to trade or sell those credits or those concepts to buyers in their same supply chain. And I think that one particularly has great opportunity. So when we look at a global brand that's made a commitment, they need to make good on that. And right now, they may be doing that through a random tree planting program where they're planting trees around the world. Or maybe they're buying offsets. Maybe those offsets are high quality offsets, they're nature-based offsets, but they're not connected to the supply chain. A lot of folks now are talking about how to connect the two. And I think that's the opportunity. How do you apply those offsets, those attempts at a company to decrease their carbon footprint, their emissions footprint, tie that into the great work that farmers are doing to be regenerative and to sell those offsets and to trade them back to the ultimate buyer? And so that way there's a market incentive that's in play. It improves the quality of production for the farmers. It helps them adapt. That could look like windbreaks. We know that winds, especially at higher altitudes on mountainsides and hillsides, are increasing with climate change. Our friend, Alex from NIAB said, recognize the great work they've been doing recently on shade. We know that shade can combat pestilence. Valerie's colleague, Juliana Jaramillo from Rainforest Alliance, did great groundbreaking research about 10 years back in Mount Elgon, realizing that if you put shade in, the sheer temperature lowers just enough to make it less hospitable for coffee beetle borer. So those types of investments have a multitude of benefits, and they can be simple. I think the challenge is that they need to happen across the industry. They don't happen in one place. They don't happen on one massive farm across the country. They happen with thousands of farmers across the country, millions of farmers across the world. And so I get excited because not only are we seeing new models that tie folks together, I see it as opportunities for farmers to develop living income by being able to do that, not just dependent on the price of coffee, but being able to diversify using these climate smart practices, and the diversification bringing in new revenue streams to the farms. I think that builds on existing revenue diversification. We're seeing in a hungry world, folks crave a variety of products, both locally, regionally, and globally. And so where farmers can lay in really smart agriculture that improves the soil quality and the water quality and the biodiversity quality, farms are looking at plays like ginger and cardamom as products that bring just as much revenue side by side with coffee and fit well into that growing environment. We've seen that certainly with concepts like banana, mango, or honey. We've even seen concepts like fish farming of tilapia, or growing mushrooms, or using coffee cherry to create commercial compost and commercial fertilizer, lowering the cost of inputs and improving soil health. Lots of technology is catching up. Technology and science is really the key here in so many ways. Our friends at World Coffee Research have been doing trials around the world to create the next iteration of varieties using simple plant breeding techniques that have been around for hundreds of years to really breed out traits that don't work well as we see less water or more wind or higher or lower temperatures. So farmers can plant new seed technology that's best for the environment and for what the environment will be, as that coffee comes to fruition in 3 to 5 years. That was one of the biggest challenges during the Roya epidemic in Latin America in 2013, because there wasn't enough seed technology and not enough good research and not enough verified seed technology. So people thought they were buying good seeds that would be good for the future, only to find out that they bought seeds that took them out of the quality market, or perhaps led to a continuation of Roya. I think that all of this fits together in many ways with some of the increase in other technologies that are out. You have tools that make this a lot easier for diverse partners to be able to connect with one another. Technology, some that's proprietary, some that's on the market, that's being adapted and linked and digitally connected in new ways. So farmers with smartphones can use it and interact with perhaps a technico, an agronomist or an extensionist from NIAB, or perhaps from a university halfway around the world, or perhaps with somebody from my team. The technology is creating these new capabilities for interaction and data sharing and data mining for analysis and quick, rapid action. And then there are tools that tie together and look specifically at emissions and biodiversity that have been honed for a decade, that are really available in the market, like Rainforest Alliance tools and like the Cool Farm tool. that exist. All of this comes together with huge opportunities for smallholders and huge economic incentive for global buyers who want to stay in the industry, who want to maintain the profit structure that they have. But in order to do so, they need to keep reinvesting. But we can't do it alone. Many of us in the industry, it's surprising even for farmers, operate on very low margins. We're a mission-oriented company, as many of my colleagues are, but we can only do so much with our own resources. As farmers can only do so much. So we depend on smart incentives and subsidies from government, and we depend on smart, enlightened philanthropists to join us. That's the only way we can take what would be a grim crisis and flip it into a powerful opportunity, not only for smallholders, but let's be honest, if coffee is endangered, so are the rest of us, because so is the rest of food. Thanks so much. Marakoze Chani.
Thank you so much, Liam, and thank you so much to all of our panelists, Valerie and Alex, and to Fidel and Stephen for presenting as well. I think for me, the summary of the conversation today has been that yes, of course, there are challenges, but we can't think about them as in a defeatist sense. We actually need to think constructively about them and the opportunities that delivering on these, delivering the kind of new innovations and activities that can solve or at least tackle this problem are massive to both smallholder farmer and to different partners all around the world. Again, I'd like to thank the Scottish Government who helped fund the project and to the Challenges team for delivering on it. We also had an implementing partner on the ground, which is Universe NBC. They supported on delivery and worked very closely with the cooperatives and Fidel in doing so. And a big thanks to you as well for the audience for listening and to sticking with us as we went past the hour mark. We hope to be able to answer your questions. If there are any that you would really like answered very quickly, please do just get in touch. And we look forward to hearing and speaking to you all very soon. Thank you and have a very pleasant evening, or for Liam based in America, have a good rest of your day. Thanks so much, everybody, and see you soon.